Pour 30 inches of water onto this field in a single hour. Now watch the ground. Nothing runs off. It all goes in. 35 years ago, this same ground could only take half an inch before the rest sheeted off toward the road ditch, carrying the topsoil with it. Same acres, same rancher, same rain. What changed in between wasn't a new machine or a new seed or a government check. What changed is that he went broke 4 years in a row and could no longer afford to farm the way he'd been taught. This is the story of Gabe Brown. 5,000 acres just outside Bismarck, North Dakota. It chases one uncomfortable question. Was his land ruined by the weather? Or was the way he farmed the reason the weather could ruin him at all? In 1991, Gabe and his wife Shelley took over her parents' farm. He did everything correctly. He plowed. He seeded monocultures of wheat and barley. He bought fertilizer, herbicide, fungicide, insecticide, and he applied them on schedule. His soil tested at 7% organic matter, the carbon-rich, living fraction that makes soil soil rather than dust. Native prairie in that county once ran 2, 3, 4 times higher. He didn't think of that as a problem. Nobody did. It was simply what farmland in the northern plains looked like after a century of the plow. Then came 1995. A hailstorm flattened his entire crop days before harvest. 100% loss. 1996. Hail again. 100% loss. 1997. No hail, a drought instead. The crop came off at a fraction of normal. 1998. Hail. Again, 4 consecutive seasons with almost no income. The equipment went. The credit line closed. By his own account, they were one banker's decision away from losing the farm entirely. And here's the pivot the whole story turns on. He couldn't afford fertilizer. He couldn't afford chemicals. He couldn't afford the diesel to plow 5,000 acres. So he stopped. Not out of philosophy, out of arithmetic. Now, the obvious fix would have been no-till. Stop the plow, leave the residue, save the soil. Gabe had already gone no-till in 1993. It wasn't enough, because no-till on its own still leaves the ground naked half the year, still grows one species at a time, and still depends on the bag. The other obvious fix, go organic, mostly swaps chemicals back for steel, more tillage to kill weeds, which is the original wound. The thing neither fix addresses is that soil is not a substrate. It's an organism. A single teaspoon of healthy soil holds more living things than there are people on Earth. Plants pay that underground economy directly. Up to 1/3 of the sugar a plant makes by photosynthesis gets pushed out of its roots as liquid carbon to feed the bacteria and fungi that in return unlock minerals from the rock. Fertilizer short-circuits that trade. Why pay the fungi when nitrogen arrives free from a spreader? The market underground shuts down, and a dead soil can't hold water, can't hold nutrients, and can't hold itself together. So Gabe stopped trying to feed the plants. He started trying to feed the soil, and he did it with the cheapest tools he had left: seeds, sunlight, and cows. First, never leave the ground bare. Between and after cash crops, he seeded cover crop cocktails, not one species, but 15, 20, sometimes 70 at once. Radishes to drill through compaction, legumes to fix nitrogen out of the air, grasses to build bulk, flowering species to feed pollinators and predatory insects, different roots at different depths, feeding different microbes. Second, put the animals back. For 10,000 years, this prairie was grazed by enormous herds that moved constantly and never returned to the same grass twice in a season. So Gabe mimicked it. Portable electric fence. Hundreds of cattle packed into a small paddock for a day or less, then moved on, and that paddock left to rest, sometimes for a full year. The herd eats 1/3, tramples 1/3 into the surface as mulch, and fertilizes as it goes. Then it leaves. It's the whole trick: high impact, short duration, long recovery. Over the following years, the results showed up in the one place that can't be argued with: the soil tests. Organic matter climbed from 7% to above 7%, and higher in his best fields. In soil science terms, that isn't an improvement, that's a different substance. Each single percentage point of organic matter holds roughly 20,000 gallons of water per acre. He added more than 5 points. Across 5,000 acres, that is a reservoir he did not have to build. And the infiltration test, the one we opened on, went from half an inch an hour to over 30. Meaning the same storm that once destroyed him now simply disappears into the ground. Which brings us to the part that actually changes minds. Not the ecology, The ledger. Brown's ranch has bought no synthetic fertilizer since 2008. No fungicide, no insecticide. Herbicide reduced to almost nothing. His corn still averages above the county mean, but his cost of production per bushel came in at a fraction of his neighbours, because the largest line items on a conventional farm's budget simply stopped existing. Then he stopped selling commodities into someone else's price. Grass-finished beef, pastured pork, eggs, honey sold direct, from the ranch at his number instead of Chicago's. Be clear about what this is not. It's not instant. The organic matter took 2 decades of compounding. It's not a recipe you can copy acre for acre onto different rainfall, different soil, different markets. And it is genuinely harder. Cover crop mixes require thought. Moving cattle daily requires labor. You're replacing purchased inputs with management and attention. But the principles do travel because they're not techniques, they're constraints. Minimize disturbance. Keep the ground covered. Keep living roots in it year-round. Grow diversity, not monoculture. Integrate animals. Gabe wrote it down in a book called Dirt to Soil and co-founded a school soil health academy that has now taught these 5 principles to thousands of farmers on several continents. On land, nothing like North Dakota, which points at the real number. There are roughly 3.5 billion acres of cropland on Earth, most of it losing carbon and shedding water exactly the way Gabe's did in 1991. You do not need all of it. You need the fraction where a farmer runs the honest comparison and finds that the biologically fed acre outturns the chemically fed one. Because at that point, this stops being an environmental argument and becomes a business decision. 4 years of hail and drought were supposed to end Gabe Brown. Instead, they took away every tool he'd been trained to use and left him with the only one that was ever actually doing the work: the ground itself. If you want the actual mechanics, the cover crop mixes, the grazing intervals, the soil test numbers year by year, and the 4 other farms running the same playbook in wetter and drier climates, the full written breakdown is linked in the description.